Hi there. Welcome back to the Complicated Kids podcast. I'm your host, Gabriele Nicolet. I am a toddler whisperer, a speech therapist, and a parent coach. And today I'm delighted to have Faye Bankler Casell with me. Faye, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here. I love toddler whisperer.
It's my favorite thing. um, I'm excited because we're going to talk all about empowering parents to teach their own children to read. Before we do that, though, would you just tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you do?
Sure, of course. So I have a background in early childhood special education, like you. When my son was young, because his mom is an early childhood special educator, I picked up on all the signs that he needed lots of intervention. So I had him in everything. And I was on the lookout, assuming that there was going to probably be reading issues because the signs had already been there. And sure enough, he did. And I really fell back on my special ed background of working multisensory and to launch his reading. And then I decided to become a dyslexia therapist. So I'm a certified academic language therapist. I moved up into the elementary grades and taught a bunch of kids how to read. And now I am finding that so many families are not getting their kids' needs met necessarily through the school system for a variety of reasons. And so I am showing them how to do it.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. Okay. Why are children's reading needs not being met at school? Like, paint a picture for us about like what happens. How come that's not a thing? Or why isn't it a very good thing?
Well, so this is what I will say. I'll preface it with it is a lottery system. So you could hit the jackpot and be home free.
Because you got a teacher who understands the science of reading.
100%, because you have a teacher who understands the science of reading and teaches that way. So it's a sort of multi-pronged systems failure that's happening right now. The colleges of education were not teaching the science accurately. And then the teachers, the states, many of the districts still have adopted curriculum that are not aligned with the science of reading. So right now, nationally, fourth graders, about 70% of them are not proficient readers. So it's a whole systems issue. So then when you go within that for children who aren't failing yet, but are struggling, whose parents aren't advocating, there are a variety of reasons that they may not get identified. Mm-hmm. Or they'll get identified, but not until third, fourth, fifth grade. And when you intervene in first grade, when their brains are so pliable, and the instruction has just started and their self-esteem hasn't cratered because they're feeling like a failure at school, you can have a 90-95% success rate of them being on grade level for, the rest of their learning after they get the intervention. If you wait until fourth grade, your chances, your odds go down to 40-45%. They're halved. And the length of the intervention is multiplied. It just takes so much longer because they're older, their brains are, it takes a lot more to get the information in. Yeah. So I am every week talking to families who have been fighting with schools for years, who have been told, well, your child is passing this, or their grades are passing, or so either the schools are refusing to test them, or they're testing them and they're saying, okay, your kid does show signs of dyslexia. However, they don't show educational need because look, they passed this thing. So, and my question to them is like, how hard is it to fail first grade?
Okay. I want to pause here because I really want people to hear what you said, which was, and add in anything else that you want to highlight it here. First grade is the right time to intervene if a child is not learning to read very easily.
Right. And I will say another thing that schools don't necessarily believe, but the science is there, is that we can identify with about 92% accuracy by age 5.5 if a kid is at risk showing signs dyslexic. Because the thing is, it's a language processing issue. So honestly, the old, well, your child needs to have a year or two of good reading instruction under their belt doesn't even hold, because the things that you're looking for, you can find them through talking. The kid does not need to be reading. So there's a lot of misinformation out there. And I would say that, yes, one of my kind of first sort of pillars of service, I feel like, for families is really just trying to get them connected to good information sources. And then the other is, well, once they've got that and realized, oh my gosh, I've got to move quickly, maybe they're not going to have to do it forever. But you're right. They want to jump on things in first grade and kick things off while they continue to search for the right person or get the school to test or do whatever. There's no harm in teaching kids through structured literacy.
Yeah. Okay. So you're what, six and seven in first grade. So tell us about what are let's just look further upstream for 3, 4, 5 year olds. What do they need to be doing, need to be understanding, need to be working with in order to learn to read well?
Sure. Well, 3, 4, 5, you want to do lots of nursery rhymes. You really want to hit those rhymes. Are they starting to recognize letters of the alphabet, the most important ones to them, which would be the letters of their name or maybe a sibling's name? Are they then starting to connect some of the letters and the sounds together? So really you're getting that sort of sound language play. As they're getting a little bit older, then we want to start playing with kind of syllables or taking sounds away, putting sounds in. Can you guess my word? Man. Those sorts of things as you're kind of moving in towards kindergarten. So really, if your child has a history of language and speech delays, you want to be on high alert because it is a language processing issue. It is an issue of connecting the written text to the sounds. So if your kid has already been identified as having a speech delay, you're going to want to be vigilant and on top of things. Other things that can happen is you'll see kids who pick almost the right word, kind of within the realm of what they meant. You know, it sort of sounded like the right thing, but it means something else. Or it's kind of in that category, right? Where I ask you about the dishwasher, but I mean the washing machine or some other appliance, that sort of thing. Those are some really good indicators of struggle. Other things like just recognizing patterns like the days of the week. I always go to gymnastics on Monday, but when I walk out of gymnastics and I turn to my mom and I say, what day is it? Even though I've always gone to gymnastics on Monday, those sorts of connections are also good indicators that you want to be on the lookout.
Yeah. And so, okay, let's take this first grader because, you know, they were doing fine. They like their nursery rhymes. They can pick the first sound out of a word. By the way, my pet peeve, letter sounds versus letter names. You want to speak to that for just a second? And maybe you don't have an opinion, and that's fine too.
Now, I might vary a little bit my opinion from you. I'm not sure. So actually knowing the letter names is an important indicator and predictor of school success. So it is important to know their letter names. However, the sounds don't always sound like the name. So for example, I was showing this one family who had an alphabet chart, and for the letter X, there was a picture of X-ray, which makes me crazy because the sound X is like X in fox, right? The X is more of that E sound right in front. So you have to be discerning. I like want to spit venom when people put a giraffe for G, because that's a soft G sound, and we want to teach them more like goat at the beginning. Soft G is much later. So are you and I in agreement, or where am I differing from you?
Oh yes. No, if listen, I love the ABC song. It's super fun. But I would way rather parents teach their kids the letter sounds than the
Mm-hmm.
letter names. 100 to 1. Because they're going to hear, number one, they're going to hear the letter names everywhere. Like, oh, look, there's an M. Okay, fine. But if
Right.
we're talking about what does this sound right here say, then we want to say it's an
Right.
or
So
mommy.
this is where I do differ from you a little bit.
Mm,
I don't disagree that I want parents to work on letter sounds,
yeah.
but when you think about letters, the only constant is its name. It changes shape. It's uppercase, lowercase, it changes shape. Sometimes it changes its sound. You've got cursive, you've got print. So that's like a really early foundation.
Uh-huh.
But then once you've got it, you need to be moving on. And exactly right. You want to start pushing the letters and the sounds. So
Yeah.
that's where you and I kind of depart.
Love it. Okay. So let's take our little first grader who's kind of not wanting to read. I find that not wanting to do something is often a sign of
Mm-hmm.
that there's trouble in
Mm-hmm.
paradise. Or it's hard. What are we doing? What should we do?
Yes. So it's really going back to that phonological awareness, those letter sounds. That is the foundation for everything. So starting to make sure that they can connect a letter to a sound, hearing the sounds in words, and then you want to start cutting out a sound. So if we say bright and I take away b, you've still got right. If we say car and I take away k and put in f, we say far. And then maybe going to the last sound and then starting to play a little bit with the syllables or compound words. Cowboy, take away cow, you've got boy. So those are really the first important components. And I will tell you, as a dyslexia therapist, really, whenever I start working with a kid, now some of them I might go through it quickly, but I'm always going to go through and make sure that these kids know the letter sounds. So taking the alphabet out of order and having them touch and name the sound for me, then me giving a sound eh and seeing if they can write the e, because
Mm-hmm.
that's the encoding, that's the taking the sound and turning it into text. And I will say that I've started with many a fourth grader, many a third grader, and I'll say, do these words rhyme? And I'll say two rhyming words, and they'll sort of look like a deer in headlight and shake their head and then nod their head, or say three words, which two rhyme. And you'll find that when you do this with your kid who's struggling, they can really be struggling on a sound level that you just assumed they already had. So shoring that up is really the first big step. And then starting in on those consonant, vowel, consonant words with those short vowel sounds. And even then, I like to go in a more particular order. I is much more stable. Every vowel has at least two sounds, a long and a short. But you talk about A, and that letter is all over the place. It's got five, I think. So yeah, just starting and not starting with the whole alphabet. Pick out some good 5 letters and start working on CVC.
Yeah. And this is something you help families do, yes?
It is. I work privately with
Mm-hmm.
children, of course, but as I said before, I'm finding that these families are not getting access. And here's the thing is I love what I do. I charge what I'm worth. It's a lot of money. It's a commitment when you're talking about 3 to 5 times a week
Mhm.
for dyslexia therapy. I'm in Texas, so I'm cheaper nationally at $80 an hour, but you get to where you are, and I bet people are 120
At
or
least.
more.
Mhm.
And it's too much. These families, it's too much. So there are a couple of different options. I do have some resources that can point them to some free, low cost options. There are home pieces that people can do. And I would be curious, I'm sure you see this a lot, but I am seeing so many families of kids with disabilities, with dyslexia, with autism, who are choosing to homeschool because it is just not coming together at school.
Yes.
So and I have a history of doing adult education and training teachers. And so I am breaking it down for families so that they can do this because the risk of not doing it, even if you don't do it as good as maybe I might do one-on-one with your kid, you're doing a heck of a lot better than any other thing that's going on for them. So
Yeah, and I think, it's so interesting once when parents know what to do and they know kind of how to do it, then there's real power there versus kind of, and again,
mhm.
this is not for everybody and that's
No,
fine.
no.
Homeschooling in particular is not for everybody and that's fine, but it is for some people and it's not as hard as a lot of people think.
Right.
So,
And even
right?
if you don't choose to homeschool
Yeah.
and you just want to work with your child,
Yeah.
right? So I have a series of videos where I enact the lessons, the strategies I've written out, right? All of the curriculum and supplied it. Um, but you really do need a live human there, not a computer program, because the other thing that does need to happen, and I do offer coaching for parents who are doing this, is you need to be able to look at the mistakes that are made or why they even got something right, because it doesn't necessarily mean that they've mastered the concept. So um, I'm working with this brilliant little girl. She really gets the rules that she is being instructed on as far as reading. She can't apply them. She struggles with the sounds, but her parents showed me, look, she got 100 on her spelling test. So the sound was oi, which is OY or OI. And she had a picture to choose from, which is developmentally appropriate. It's first grade. And she had 2 sentences to choose from. And it was the boy did this or the boy did this. And she looked at it and she knew she was looking for OY or OI. And the O, she picked the OY because OI, it doesn't look right. Words don't really end in I. So then she also did the ow sound. So then I asked her to spell cow, and she put the C and she put the O, and then she said, well, it's either a W or a U. Which one is it? And I was like, well, that's the point of this activity is for you to tell me. And so she had a 50-50 shot. She grabbed the U. And I told her, just so you know, most words don't end in you in English. You might have a silent E there, or you might use a different letter like the W. So in this case, so now she's probably not going to make that mistake again, but she still hasn't mastered the concept.
Well, it's interesting what you're saying here. I want you to speak a little bit more into this of because there are lots of kids who have a reading disorder who look like they can read because they've memorized the shape of
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of words, like too many words for their
Mm-hmm.
poor little memories to hold on to. And that starts to break down very quickly in about third grade, fourth grade. So
Third grade,
talk
you
a little bit
really
about that.
wear, yeah.
Yeah.
Third grade, you really see the cracks because their brains just can't retain enough words, like you said, memorized, and they're starting to hit all these multisyllabic content area words.
Yeah.
But so the reason you are looking closely, like this little girl in first grade, here are some of the things that she does. she over relies on the picture and she's not decoding. So the way that that could look is that the dog is in the grass and she might say the puppy is outside, or the puppy's in the grass, or she might name something. She might say house instead of home because it's an H word. So she's guessing off of the first letter. So you really do want to make sure that they are accurately reading the word in front of them at that age, because the brightest kids can fly under the radar and mask it, usually until about third grade, while simultaneously cratering social emotionally, because it's so much pressure to try to keep up, this song and dance when it's coming more easily to your friends perhaps than you. So,
and it's a big cost. You're saying something similar, but I want to go one step down, which is there's a big nervous system cost to masking and working that hard just to do something that it looks like everybody else can do really easily, which of course is not the case. And also, most kids, you tell me the statistics on this, most kids will learn to read no matter what approach we use.
There are kids who will learn, but I will say this. If there were kids who learned to read no matter what approach we used, we wouldn't have 70% of them not reading in fourth grade.
Fair.
So let's say 20 might learn. Now, when we talk about structured literacy, which is literacy instruction that is sequential, it's systematic, it builds, it's multisensory, it's explicit, it's explained to the children, this is what it is, this is how we do it, then that benefits everybody. Yeah. What we sort of say in the dyslexia community is it's beneficial for all and essential for some. For some kids, they are never going to connect the dots unless you lay it out for them. And that's not a bad thing, because those kids usually have access and utilize parts of their brains that are phenomenal at a whole lot of things, but reading is not one of the things that they are phenomenal at. Yep. So, it's a beautiful brain. It's not wrong. It's not, but it needs to be, the onus is on the adults to teach the children the way that they learn, not for the children to try to just figure it out.
I love that. I love that. That seems like a really great place to pin this conversation. Faye, if people want to learn more about you and the work they do, what can they do? Where can they go?
Sure. So on social media, it is Home Reading Coach. My website is homereadingcoach.com. I am just getting a YouTube channel off the ground where I'm able to do a deeper dive, and that is called Teach My Child to Read. On my website or my socials, the parents can access a mini ebook that I wrote called The Dyslexia Roadmap for Families. And that is just kind of an answer to all those FAQs of what am I looking for? How do I get tested? What are the accommodations? How do I find a professional? How do I advocate? So all of those questions that are always straight out the gate. And then I also am launching at the very end of March my reading breakthrough, the first level, again, for those parents who maybe just want a stopgap measure, who maybe just want to shore things up, or who are saying, I'm going to take the reins. So that is walking them through very explicit teaching. And then they can add on different things if they want to do coaching and consults and that sort of stuff. So they can find out about that on my website too.
Fantastic. Give us the website one more time.
It is homereadingcoach.com.
Perfect. Faye, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. It's been a delight.